The New York Knicks had recently just signed Thibodeau to a 5-year deal to be the new head coach of the team. Now, I've seen a lot of people indifferent on this. Some people wanted Kenny Atkinson because he is best suited to coach this young Knicks team, which is understandable. I'm very optimistic about this move because there's really nowhere the Knicks can go but up with this signing. The Knicks ran through more coaches in the past 12 years, like how some NBA players ran through the Kardashians. Sorry if that was a played out joke, but you know, it was right there. I think it was clever. Anyways, Thibs has been known for playing his players crazy amounts of minutes, and I already see the RJ Barrett playing 45 minutes a game memes coming in. Thibs is also known to be a, how would I say, expressive coach. Like seriously, you can hear this man screeching a play from the sidelines. Now, he has been gone from coaching for over a year now, and he has actually came out and said that he recognizes that there basically needs some growth to be done on his part as a coach. Now, before I get more into this video, if you liked the video, please do give it a like and comment. It helps in getting this video out to more people, and this channel is meant to spark a conversation around the NBA, and the more people in that conversation, the better. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe. The New York Knicks with Thibodeau has a 50-50 shot of going well or completely failing, and I truly believe with Thibs with the Knicks, they are leaning in a good direction, and there should be a lot of optimism as possible with this situation. First of all, coaches grow. Coaches grow with time, experience, losses, wins, ups, downs, and the talent that they have. They are forced to constantly look to adapt constantly because overall their missions are to push a team to a championship. Thibs acknowledged this when he was on an episode of ESPN First Take, so he at least has the mindset to try and change his old ways. At this point, his weakness as a coach is not really building an ideal culture or true identity of a team, not really connecting with his players. His coaching and getting to his players sometimes rubs them the wrong way, and obviously he plays his team a huge amount of minutes, or in other words, he just overworks his team. I think Thibs realizes that overworking his team burns them out, and he knows that's a big weakness of him, which is not managing minutes and giving players extended minutes, which is a reason of what causes injuries and burns players out. Just ask Derrick Rose. In the past 10 seasons, the Thibodeau-led Chicago Bulls held the most players who averaged the most minutes played per game, with Luol Deng leading the league twice in 2011 and 2012 and 2012-2013 seasons, and Jimmy Butler in the 2014-2015 season. Realistically, there isn't a valid reason to overwork your players in the Knicks situation and have them playing crazy amounts of minutes. The Knicks really don't have much to build towards. They aren't competing for a championship or running in the playoffs right now. They are still rebuilding, and I give them 2 more years until they may finally start to be serious playoff contenders, as long as everything goes according to plan, and as long as praying to the basketball gods that they don't mess up anything. Minnesota was a competing team with a lot of talent, so to maximize the team's success, overplaying the main guys was his go-to to close out games. Same thing with Chicago. They were a team that was competed and he trusted his starting guys, but my main gripe was that he played his starters in situations where he didn't really need to play them. For the Knicks, it doesn't really make sense to overplay them, more so take his first year out and evaluating the talent he has and how to best utilize them or maximize their strengths. His first step in showing that he grew as a coach is recognizing and utilizing more options off the bench and building better rotations. Now, the Knicks has some talent on this team that needs a fire lit in their you-know-what. Their core in RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Damian Dotson, and especially Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr. if they do keep him, and Kevin Knox. I actually think Thibs can really help build these guys. When Thibs came to the Chicago Bulls, all he really had was Derrick Rose. After that, Jimmy Butler grew with him, Luol Deng, and also Joakim Noah became a valuable piece for the Bulls. Obviously, development doesn't all fall down on Thibs' shoulders. Other factors weigh in, such as work ethic of a player and having strong developmental coaches to help players build on their skills and muscle memory. Thibs just has to look to put these guys on the right path in terms of opportunities and building the right culture for them and understanding his players' strengths and weaknesses, which he has done a good job in the past, really. Now, how the Knicks respond to Thibs' coaching is unknown. Some players can take it, others can't. He is so expressive because as a coach, he is trying to elevate his players to play hard and win games. That's why he is such a no-nonsense guy. But younger players are much more to be rubbed the wrong way than established veterans. This was seen with the Karl Anthony Towns situation in Minnesota. This could be a concerning area for Thibs because his new roster is filled with young talent, and if he turns off his younger players, that's going to create a weird atmosphere in the locker room, and the last thing you want on a young team is not to be connected. But why would he take a job coaching a young team if he didn't have a plan in place to grow with them and switch up on his old habits? Now, Thibs can be very valuable to the development of guys like RJ Barrett, Frank Ntilikina, and Mitchell Robinson on the defensive end, and also a Kevin Knox. These guys have defensive tools. Some also have the IQ, and they are good defensive growing pieces, but they aren't disciplined too much on that end or has a system in place for their defense to truly come to fruition. But everyone has to buy into Thibs' defensive schemes. The huge difference between Thibs' Chicago Bulls and Thibs' Minnesota Timberwolves is that the Bulls bought in and played hard defensively under Thibs. They were considered the favorites to even knock off the Miami Heat, even though their roster talent-wise didn't really match up to Miami. Everyone bought in, that's why they were a winning team with Thibs and saw a lot of success. In Minnesota, no one really bought into Thibs' defensive schemes, and that showed. Young players were rubbed the wrong way, most notably a Karl Anthony Towns, Gorgie Dang, and a Andrew Wiggins. No one wanted to play defense on this team, and as the years grew, the players became more and more distant from Thibs, which led to the, Jimmy Butler practice. Overall, there was just a disconnect of how to operate together as a team. And honestly, if the Wolves bought in defensively, they would have been a really, really, really great team because their offensive production was already good, but that's because of the talent on that team that elevated their offense. Their defense was just poor. So Thibs is going to have to find a way to make sure his talent is all on the same page, and he has to treat these guys like a family and establish a culture that could be a defensive culture given the potential the talent has on this team, because another weakness of his was not really focusing on connecting with his team. This is where he can step in and elevate a guy like Dennis Smith Jr., who realistically the league has given up on. And teams really are not all too high on him. He was shipped out of Dallas in the worst way possible, then this season had a very poor, concerning season with the Knicks. He wasn't trusted as the lead guard, and he didn't really have that coach that believed in him to be the point guard of a team. Dennis's potential with him, he just needs a coach to finally believe in him and light a fire in him. This is the stepping up part for Thibs and how he can establish a connection with his players. All it is recognizing your talent and finding a way to just make it work somehow. For a guy like Mitchell Robinson, he is a great player and he has huge upside for the Knicks. He is a good defensive player, but he can be great under Thibs. And obviously Thibs coached a guy such as Joakim Noah to a Defensive Player of the Year award. With RJ Barrett, I truly believe he has great potential to be a great two-way player in the league. He just needs the spacing around him to succeed on the offensive end, and he needs to be disciplined on the defensive end. RJ right now is obviously the main piece of this team. Building that rapport with him and building him defensively is going to be key. I think Frank Ntilikina benefits the most out of the Thibs signing, because at this point, he is a defensive guard. That's what he is best at doing, but he needs to polish up his offense. He just doesn't seem to attack the way you would want him to attack. Now, this was a familiar case with Jimmy Butler coming into the league. Not to say that Frank will be a Jimmy Butler, because Butler worked his butt off to get where he is now, probably more so than majority of the league. But Thibs at least experienced a player who grew from a defensive guy to an all-star type of guy. Ntilikina's development under Thibs is going to be interesting, but I'd imagine he'll get a lot of shine from Thibs. Now, I've always questioned, where's that aggressiveness from Frank at? Where's that dog in him to attack? He can be a defensive monster at his full potential. If Ntilikina develops a consistent three-point shot, he could be a very valuable piece as just a 3-and-D guy for the Knicks. The Knicks have the tools to be a great defensive team before they become a better offensive team. So the tools are already there for Thibs to get this team working in unison defensively, as well as growing offensively, where basically get RJ Barrett some shooters and let this man be unleashed. The Knicks are a new obstacle for Thibs. He never really had control of a young team quite like this. And he is going to have a coaching staff around him that helps him, because Thibs is a guy that specializes the most in defensive schemes, but not so much offensive schemes, where a lot of his plays are dated or just not all too crafty. But I'll say this Knicks core is growing some potential and also some question marks. If Thibs still has that rugged approach to his players, not all the time, but at least light a flame in them, he will filter the hard-working players from the non-working players. Players who are committed to winning basketball versus those who are just content. There's really nowhere to go but up for the Knicks. Thibs is a guy that is going to get effort from his players. He's going to light you up and light a fire in you. That's just his style. His style has proven to be a winning one, and that shows to his 352-246 win-loss record. A coach of the year and multiple playoff appearances. So there's a lot to be optimistic about Thibs. He has the resume. The Knicks are going to benefit a lot in being a defensive team if everyone buys in. There's honestly too much defensive talent on this team to not succeed on this end. That's why I'm high on Thibs as the coach. I consider this Knicks team to be a redemption team for Thibs, and he already is known to be a competitive coach. But time will tell if this coach signing is going to fail or be the beginning of a new era for the New York Knicks.